What we understand.
Right, yeah, he was actually, yeah. And they were, these super soldiers, there's many different ways. That's why I'm a little disturbed. I haven't seen the movie about the Menesteric goats, but I'm very familiar with psionic warfare, and it's nothing to laugh at.
Well, absolutely. But we are getting information about a much more advanced form of robot. Have you also gotten that information?
Yeah, in fact, they're creating a super soldier cyborgs in an underground embryo lab just outside Beijing, China, for the world government. And they're, from what I hear, it's somewhere between 125 and 150,000 are currently being, how can I say, developed would be the best.
Okay, and are you saying that these are done with America and China on the same side?
Absolutely.
I see.
Yeah, in other words, all of the external dance of all these governments is all a lie for public consumption. They're moving toward a world government which is primarily controlled by the lettered agencies run the governments, and the governments are simply a skin or a shell for the real issue, which is the lettered agencies are controlled by these global elite.
Okay, and these cyborgs, what is this army of cyborgs? Is it going to be to control the population or to fight an interstellar war?
Either or both.
Is it possible that these cyborgs could be used for, in essence, a good purpose if we are indeed going to be invaded by, say, a race of reptilians and or other robotic races that perhaps are moving in on what we've heard are basically planetoids that are...
yeah, that's possible, but I don't think we need to necessarily have to develop our own force here. What we're dealing with is an intervention that's millions of years ahead of our culture, that we really don't have to do anything in order for us to be protected. We just have to have a sea change in the nature of what we are. We have to have not a physical change of our appearance, it's a complete change of our perspective of what it is to be a being on this planet and what it is to be a being in a collective of civilizations that understand the very nature of what it is to be and the very nature of the universe itself, which we're ignorant of. And I don't think that we necessarily have to develop our own force. I think what this force that's being developed is purely for evil. It's completely under control of the globalist elite. They're completely under the thumb of the dark side, if you want to call it, the Draco-Reptilian.
Right.
Would be the term of the Nephilim. Some people use the word Anunnaki, whatever, but it's the dark side, and it's...
The trouble with the word Anunnaki is that it has both positive and negative, whereas
I know, I don't like using that term, that's why. And
the Draco...
I think people need to understand there's both... Yeah, exactly. There are... I don't like to use the word alien either. The word alien to me shouldn't be even used.
Right.
The best way to use it would be the word like the biblical term angels. There's good angels and bad angels. Angel means in Greek messenger, and that'd be a better term. And if you go back to the biblical terms, then it makes sense. You say, okay, now I know about the 200 that landed in Horeb, that transferred technology to mankind, and like Prometheus gave man fire. Well, we've been transferred technologies that we shouldn't have, far more advanced than what people even know of. And many of these are for mind control and for evil and for warfare that are far beyond our civilization's emotional capacity and spiritual capacity to handle in a rational way. In other words, our civilization isn't prepared to deal with this. And, of course, I get challenged at times by people who say, well, I don't know about that, and that can't exist. I said, well, I'm sorry. Unless you're invited, you don't get access to this information. Even if you're a tenured professor, you have access to about 4% of the sum total of scientific knowledge in your area, or geopolitical or historical knowledge. And that's why things like this material that Gerald's talking about in Egypt with the
labyrinth.
You're talking the labyrinth there, and there's lots of discoveries all over the world. They know that there were, when we invaded Iraq back in, we took what's called the Gate of Babylon, and we took all kinds of ancient documents and the Stargate, etc. I mean, they're fully aware of lots of things, occultic level that the population thinks it is all woo-woo Stargate. That sounds silly. That sci-fi channel, it doesn't exist.
That was actually a very substantial reason for invading Iraq, and the fact that they're not going to let it go anytime soon. Isn't that
right? Exactly. And of course, people have to understand also the 22nd Stargate is in Iran. It's the last one.
There's some interesting occult reason why they want to actually invade Iran, it seems to me, because there seems to be something to do with the fight between the various factions, if you will, of the Anunnaki that has to do with invading Iran. Can you talk about that at all?
Well, I think it comes down to this presence of the control of the territory, just like it says in the Bible, the Prince of Persia, or the principality, the if you want to call it the astral being that exists over that territory, is the reason. There's it goes back to biblical principles. We're dealing with the earth, and this world is not just on a physical realm. There's a higher dimensional realm to the very nature of the structure of earth and its governance. And that's the reason why there is such a contention over Iran. Iran is the last territory that has to come under their domination.
The domination of what? Of the Illuminati?
Yeah.
Okay, but that would indicate that the people running Iran are actually of the light side. Is that true?
No, they're just of a different faction, if you want to call it.
Okay, do you want to get into any detail on that level?
Well, you're just like in Iraq. Most people aren't even aware of that there were kind of, if you want to call it, secret societies that knew about the gates and the other ancient documents in Babylon and Iraq. Well, the similar thing is going on in Iran. And if you look back in the history of these ancient roots of civilization, the primary contact with these advanced civilizations that brought things to our planet, transdimensionally, if you want to call it, just like the Bible said, just like the 200 landed on Mount Horeb, a lot of these early contacts that caused the rise of some of the early religions like Zoroastrianism, etc., were in Iran. We're in the Great Valley there, and which is near Tehran. So these ancient civilizations had ways of communicating, how can I say it, with these entities and channeling information and maintaining contact and knowledge. And some of those contacts and knowledge were passed down through various organizations. Like in Britain, there were those that had passed down the Enochian knowledge through people like Mr. D, who is the one of the primary, if you want to call it, druidic wizards that helped the courts in the UK.
Right. So specifically though, in Iran, what is it?
They have their own secret orders that have been. Yeah, beyond Islam, there are other secret orders that are in Islam that have predated Islam and Judaism, and that predate and are integrated into their quote religion. Similarly to the Druidic integration within Catholicism and Judaism and Islam. So in other words, there's a counterpart in Iran. Does that make sense? In other words, there's secret orders that understand things that are beyond the understanding of basic Islam.
Well, absolutely, but there has to be, in other words, to bring that branch, if you will, under their domain is the reason to invade Iran. I mean, in other words, there's some very specific issue, it seems to me, with the Iranian, Aryan, perhaps even the Aryan Brotherhood. I don't know.
Well, I think if they know from the timeline that if Iran becomes peaceful and joins the West, it'll be the end to the timeline where the Earth can be annihilated. And the trip switch to bring about final Armageddon is the attack on Iran.
I see.
So if they can throw the switch by attacking Iran, they know that they will that we will enter the final battles that will be the dissolution of mankind and this ecosystems on this planet. And the timeline in which that doesn't occur is when there's a reconciliation with Iran. And when Iran is brought into the table of nations and all nations are respected, and we do not make war or believe in extremist religions that believe that we should kill others that don't believe what we believe, but we all rise to a higher level of consciousness. And as I say, religion becomes dance and recipe cards rather than a recipe for murder on global scale.
Okay, I think on that note we should end, Bill Deagle. I think, I really appreciate your vast knowledge in all these different areas, and I think it is valuable to begin to bring these threads together, into one, because I think people at this juncture really need to understand that there's a lot at stake, and that
they're getting too fearful, and I'm worried that fear is rising in people's hearts. And if there's any one thing I want to say is do not fear. God is here, and He sent His emissaries, and He sent His beings, and He sent His interventions, but it requires a change not in our government, not in neglecting the right leader. It requires a change in us and our willingness to become a different type of being. And when we do, when we who are being watched become different beings, it says, repent. When we repent and become different, not necessarily what we do, but what we become different in our heart. Our actions will follow our heart. Then our world will be intervened, and we will survive as a civilization that'll leap across the stars, live extended lives, and as it says in the Bible, be able to plant a tree and eat the fruit thereof and not be fearful of a nuclear war, a biological weapon, or an invasion. We're living in a time now where, unless the spirituality of mankind transcends its technology, we will be consumed by an evil that's galactic and cosmic, and it is here now, and it is ready to destroy us.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill Deagle, from Bill Ryan and Carrie Cassidy. This is Project Camelot, and we will be in touch in the future.
Yep, and don't be fearful. As I say, study, pray, and take action, but just be a different person, and things will move forward as we do this collectively.
Absolutely. Well, Project Camelot is working in that direction every day.
Take care, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and take it seriously, people. You know, if you want to test it, after you study the issues, get in real quiet prayer and be still enough to hear that voice.